What's up, Run It Ones? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about why so many players are stuck at the low or the mid stakes, even though they have the potential to do more, even though they have the potential to play higher, but they seem to have hit that glass ceiling. They seem to have arrived at that one limit that they can't beat. And I will tell you in a second what those players are missing, because there's one critical skill that differentiates the good low and mid stakes players from the high stakes players, or even the highest stakes players. And I'll get to what that one skill is in a second. But first of all, I want to ask you, what do you think is more important for success? Passion or discipline? And if you're on social media, you've probably seen some part of this discussion. Some people claim all you have to do is follow your passion. Find the thing you love and you will automatically become successful. On the other hand, people claim that if you're disciplined, if you just start grinding, you will at some point become passionate about whatever you're doing and also successful. But the reality, of course, is, as most often is the case, more complex than that. It's not that easy. In reality, you actually need both. And that leads us to that one factor that I just mentioned. I think the most important thing that distinguishes good and fairly successful players from the really, really good players, and that is grit. And grit is the combination of passion and perseverance or discipline. So the official definition of this is the combination of passion and perseverance towards long-term goals. And that term grit was coined by Angela Duckworth, who wrote a book of the same title about this. And if you want to dive into this topic more deeply, I definitely recommend this book. In this video, I will only give you a little bit of theory about what grit is, but more importantly, I will give you practical exercises to practice your grit, to improve your grit. What is grit exactly? It includes a clear sense of purpose. So in relation to poker, that means you know exactly why you play poker. You know what you love about poker. You know why you find poker interesting, but also you know what you want to do with the money that you earn through poker. If you're just playing poker in order to win money, and for one, you're not in love with all aspects of poker, just the winning, and on the other hand, you don't know what to do with the money, then your motivation will last only a very short time until you lose for the first time, basically, or until you have the first big downswing. So in order to develop grit, you need that clear sense of purpose. Why do I play poker? What do I enjoy about it? What do I find interesting about? And what is the destination that I want to reach through poker? What is the lifestyle I want to live through poker, and so on? Then, of course, it includes working diligently towards achieving that purpose. And in order to do that, you need the stamina and the resistance to persist through difficulties, setbacks, and failures. And you need to be able to put in sustained effort for a long period of time. Not just when you feel like it, not just when things are going well, not just when you have a perfect day, but regularly, again and again and again, regardless of how you're feeling, regardless of whether you're motivated, regardless of whether you're maybe a little bit tired, you're maybe a little bit tilted from the last session, and so on. And it also, of course, includes consistently practicing your skills. So basically studying and playing. And by nature, we are actually designed to do the exact opposite. By nature, we choose the path of least resistance. So when there's something hard to do, the first response of our brain is, let's not do it. Let's do the easy thing. Let's, for example, instead of studying, let's just sit down and play. Or instead of continuing to play when things are not going your way, your brain tells you, well, let's take a break, let's watch Netflix, or let's play some games. So basically our natural first instinct is always to do the opposite of what grit is, and do the opposite of what is healthy and meaningful and sensible. Well, maybe not in every single case, but in most cases. The thing is, back in ancient times, that was totally fine, because even the path of least resistance was pretty damn hard. Even the path of least resistance meant that you had to walk all day, gather food all day, run from predators, hide from the cold, find a safe place to sleep, and so on and so on. So even choosing the easiest way made us really, really tough and was a really hard life. But nowadays, of course, the path of least resistance makes us extremely weak and lazy and unhealthy. Nowadays, the path of least resistance is sitting on the couch, eating junk food, and distracting ourselves with Netflix or social media or whatever. And that, of course, ruins our health, our mental well-being, our productivity, and so on. So just maybe so you know why we have this natural tendency and why things often seem so hard, because we're designed to choose that path of least resistance. Only what this path means and how it affects us has drastically changed over time. What does it mean to develop grit specifically in relation to poker? Well, of course, it means learning to deal with the hard parts of poker and later even learning to love them. And we are all taught to not care about the result and not be results oriented in poker. And that's kind of true. But I think what is even way better than not caring about the result is learning to really, really, really care about the process and really enjoy the process and even love the process, even when it's difficult. And the way to do that is develop pride in making difficult decisions. Reminding yourself and acknowledging when you're doing hard things and when you're successfully overcoming excuses, laziness, and so on. So rather than being proud of the result, so the money basically in poker, become proud of the decisions you're making. Become proud of continuing to play when you feel like quitting when you feel like continuing to play. Because you're chasing losses late at night, for example. Being proud of studying diligently and regularly rather than just sitting down and grinding all the time. And if you really focus on that process and the pride in the process, it becomes fun. It's definitely not in the beginning. In the beginning, it's very difficult and you feel like not doing it. But the more often you do it and the more often you remind yourself that you should be proud of doing that, the more fun it becomes. So yeah, in the beginning, you will just have to deal with the hard parts of poker. Later, you will start to love them. And you will also recognize and acknowledge that the hard parts of poker are what separates the pro from the casuals, what separates the winning from the losing players. Because if poker was easy, then there would be no edge to be gained. There is an edge in poker because poker is extremely difficult emotionally, physically, and so on. And if that was not the case, it wouldn't be profitable. If it was easy for everyone to learn and if it was easy for everyone to handle their mental game, there would be no edge to be gained and you couldn't be a professional. So, become aware of the fact that there is no easy poker career. Difficulties will always be part of poker, and it's not about designing a way or a poker career that makes everything easy. So it's not about avoiding difficulty. It's not about creating this perfect setup where you never tilt, where downswings don't happen and where stress doesn't exist, because that would probably only be the case if you're playing for such a tiny amount of money that it's not relevant and that it's not enough to sustain your lifestyle. I know there's a few extreme exceptions. For example, I know of one guy who plays, I think, NL2 and manages to make a living off of that. He probably doesn't experience a lot of stress and tilt. And he seems to be fine with it, but I know most people won't be able to do that. So rather than avoiding stress, rather than avoiding tilt, learn to deal with it and become proud of being able to deal with it. And then lastly, really, really, really important part of it, and pretty much any skill that you develop, it's not a one-time decision. Often it's made to look that way, especially if you browse on social media. People always present you with these super oversimplified quotes. Just do this, just think that way, just adopt that attitude and your life will be easy. And it would be easy if it was easy to simply flip a switch and change your attitude and turn around by 180 degrees. So just because you've heard about grit now and you know that it's useful and that it's valuable doesn't mean you all of a sudden magically have developed grit. It's not a one-time decision. It's a skill that has to be practiced, and a skill and an attitude that has to be practiced again and again and again. And sometimes you will feel like you've completely forgotten about it, like you've completely neglected it, and like you're starting at zero again. But in reality, you've just fallen out of practice and you've neglected it for some time, and you might need some time to get back on track and back into the flow. But once you will realize, all right, I'm better than I was the last time. I'm restarting at a higher level than the last time that I had a similar setback. And what does that mean in practice? Well, it means you need to identify and do the tasks that you don't love, but that make sense or that have value. So a very common example would simply be studying poker. Most people don't love studying. They like playing a lot more. But of course, studying is extremely important and extremely valuable. And you can think of these tasks, these unpleasant but valuable tasks, as like the vehicle that gets you to a beautiful destination. Or you can think of all of poker as the vehicle that gets you to a certain destination. If there was no destination, if you didn't know what you were doing with poker, you wouldn't stay motivated. Identify those important, those valuable tasks that are non-optional, that have to be done, regardless of whether you feel like it or not. Of course, there's valuable and important tasks that you do like. For example, playing. Most people enjoy playing a lot more than they do studying. Of course, not all the time. But in general, people enjoy playing more. And that is part of it as well, of course. But in regards to grit, of course, the unpleasant, at least in the beginning, unpleasant tasks. As I just mentioned, they can become pleasant, but at least in the beginning, they are not. So identify those and then get rid of all the busy tasks. The tasks that kind of serve as an excuse or as a justification, pretending that you're doing something. Like, for example, you probably have that one task that you always do when you're procrastinating another more important task. For some people, for example, it's cleaning or doing household chores. All of a sudden, they become fairly attractive if they allow you to procrastinate a more difficult, more important task. And you want to eliminate those, at least if they make no sense at all. Of course, unless you have a cleaning service, you should be cleaning your room, but you should be doing the hard and the more important things first. And there's many ways, many simple practical ways, every day pretty much. You have 100 opportunities to practice grit every single day. For example, studying when you feel like playing. When you know you need to study, you should be studying, but you feel that urge to play instead. It's very easy to come up with a random excuse why you are not going to study today, how you're going to play right now, and then study tomorrow. You will never run out of excuses. Developing grit means having this excuse in your head and studying anyway. So you have that passion part. You're passionate about poker in general. The important part here is when I talk about passion in poker, everybody is passionate about winning and everybody enjoys poker when they are winning. In order to make it long term, you need to love every part of poker. You need to always be curious about poker. Of course, not always like be in an amazing mood and always be super motivated. That's impossible. But even on your worst day, you're able to remind yourself of why you're playing poker. You're able to remind yourself that you enjoy poker and where poker is supposed to get you. If that is impossible, if on a bad day you absolutely hate poker and you can't think of any reason to play, then you have a problem. Then you're probably not passionate about poker as a whole, in general. Then you're only passionate about the winning part. And that's an important question you really have to ask yourself. Are you passionate about poker in general or only about the winning? And if it's only the winning part, you can ask yourself, well, can I change this? Can I remind myself how to reignite my passion or how to find my passion? And I'll get to that in a second. But if you're absolutely unable to do that, you should ask yourself, should you be playing poker at all, or should you be playing professionally? Maybe it's different if you're playing just casually, and the passion and the fun of it comes back when you're playing lower stakes, when you don't feel like you have to grind all the time and so on. So yeah, back to this first practical example. You have the passion part. You know where poker gets you. You know why you play poker. So that's why you're studying. And you have the persistence part. You feel like playing, but you're studying anyway. Or the discipline part, rather. Then, of course, going to the gym when you're tired. You know why you're going to the gym. It makes you healthier, it makes you happier, it makes you more calm, it makes you more confident. It feels amazing after you're done and so on. So you have this purpose, you have this passion about going to the gym. And again, you have the discipline or persistence part. You're going there regularly, even though often right before you want to go, you don't, or before you're supposed to go, you don't feel like it. You're lazy, you're tired, you have excuses in your head, but you're going anyway. So again, you're practicing your discipline and your persistence. Then a very, very obvious example is folding when you want to call. You know why you should be folding. You know why folding is an important part of your poker career in general. And again, you know where your poker career can lead you and why you're playing poker. So you have, again, the passion and the purpose part. And you have this resistance. You want to know what the other person has. You're really curious. You have that FOMO, that fear of missing out. And you're really afraid of folding your hand because then you'll never know. So you have the resistance, and again, that is an opportunity to practice your discipline, feel like calling, and fold anyway. Exactly the same goes for quitting when you want to chase. You're stuck, you're down for the session, you want to chase your losses, you want to stay up all night. Again, you know why you should be quitting. Again, you have resistance, but you're doing the right thing and leaving the tables anyway. Same, of course, goes for the opposite example, continuing to play when you feel like securing a win. And then maybe two more general examples, eating healthy or eating nothing when you want to stress binge. You're really stressed out after a bad session or a bad day. But of course, you know why you want to eat the healthy stuff rather than the fast food or nothing at all because you've already had enough. So again, you know the reason why, you know the purpose behind it, and you have the resistance to overcome that voice in your head telling you, well, now you deserve it. It was such a bad day, such a stressful day. Now you really deserve some crappy fast food. Again, resistance to overcome, which makes you stronger and more resilient. And lastly, speaking the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Maybe a white lie or a friendly lie is the easy way out, but you want to be honest, you want to be transparent, so you speak the truth because you know it's better long term. And again, resistant, it's uncomfortable, it can lead to a conflict, but you do it anyway because you know it's the right thing to do. And if you've watched some of my previous videos, you realize we've pretty much talked about all of this already, and it perfectly ties in with the concept of psychological flexibility from the very first video. Just a quick reminder or quick explanation for those who haven't seen any of these videos. Psychological flexibility means being able to make the right decision in a difficult situation. So rather than automatically choosing your option, dictated by your stress level or dictated by your bad habits, dictated by your negative thoughts, which will lead to you making an unflexible automatic decision, which is often unhealthy. So for example, when you're tilting, you're stressed, you're not flexible. You're making bad decisions based on your stress or your anger. When you're psychologically flexible, doesn't mean that the anger or the tilt will disappear, but you're deliberately choosing your options. You're choosing whether to call or to fold or to continue to play or to quit the session. The emotion is still there. The negative thoughts are still there, but you are in control of your decision. And that's the important part. And all of these examples that I just mentioned basically are opportunities to practice psychological flexibility. There's resistance, there's reasons not to do these things, but you're doing them anyway. And then in the second video, I talked about values and goals and long-term goals. And that is pretty much the purpose part. If you know why you're doing something difficult, if you know why you want to overcome that resistance, then you're much more likely to do it. If you have a clear vision of your goals and a clear vision of your values, what kind of life do you want to live, you're much more likely to overcome that resistance. And in order to do that, in order to actually put this into practice, acceptance, commitment, and diffusion help. So commitment basically means putting this into action, defining specific steps to go after your goals and your values. Acceptance means rather than trying to get rid of the excuses or rid of the anger, trying to get rid of the tilt, you learn to accept it, which frees up a lot of time and energy and mental capacity to actually make those decisions that you want to make. And diffusion basically means that you're taking a step back. You realize my thoughts, my emotions are not what control me. They are part of me and they are real and they happen, and it's okay that they happen, but I can take a step back, observe them, let them be, and then make my deliberate, conscious decision rather than letting these thoughts or emotions control me. So if you haven't watched these videos, if maybe this is the first video of mine that you're watching, definitely go ahead and watch at least these first 6 videos. Of course, I would recommend you to watch all of my videos, but I think especially in relation to grit, these 6 first videos are especially important. But also, I mean, all of these videos, they have practical exercises in them. But I also want to give you a few more practical things that you can do right now from today on. Do them every day, do them once a week, whatever. There's tons of opportunities to practice your grit. The first one, of course, being simply asking yourself and writing down right now, and if you feel like it, you can also share them on the Discord server or the comments. What are you passionate about in poker? Or are you honestly passionate about poker in general, or is it just the winning part? Do you only enjoy winning? But if you say I'm passionate about and interested in poker in general, what is it exactly? Are you more the creative live player who talks a lot, who comes up with super creative, exploitative lines, who tries to make everybody fall out of their comfort zone on the table, who's being this really crazy creative live guy? Or are you more on the technical nerdy side? Do you really love studying the solver? Do you prefer to grind online? Do you love diving really deeply into specific concepts and maybe explaining them to others? Or is it maybe the social aspect of poker? There's one big reason why you love poker is meeting new interesting characters, whether it's other professional players or just random casuals who might be interesting characters on a live table. Identify if you are passionate about poker and what specifically. And also, of course, you can think about what are the goals, like the financial goals, the materialistic goals, but also like your spiritual or purpose goals that you want to reach through poker. What kind of lifestyle do you want to design with your poker money? Where do you want to live? What country do you want to be in? Do you want to support your family through poker? Do you want to live an action-loaded bachelor traveling lifestyle? Whatever it may be, ask yourself, what is it that I'm going to do with the money? Why do I want to make money in poker? Then another thing you can post on the channel or in the comments is new challenges. Because, of course, if you are doing the same thing over and over again and do it forever, it becomes boring. And you are not only not developing your skills anymore, they actually start, degrading or withering away. Use it or lose it. So, for example, you've been playing the same limit forever and ever and ever. It gets really boring and you feel like you're crushing it anyway. You don't have to study anymore and so on. You might find yourself all of a sudden losing in those games because you got bored, you didn't work on your game anymore and so on. So, in order to develop and sustain grit, you always have to actively seek new challenges. And I say actively seek because if you don't do that, then the challenges will find you. Then you will at some point realize, all right, I'm not beating those games that I used to crush anymore. And then the problems will find you. So Be proactive about it and actively seek challenges all the time. And of course, it doesn't always have to be poker related. It's totally fine to grind the same stakes for some time. It can be in any other area of life, because grit is a general skill. Poker grit is not separated from physical activity grit or from social grit and so on. They are all one general skill. And maybe in one area it's easier for you than in others, or definitely it will be. But there's a big part of grit is general and applies to all areas of life. So yeah, ask yourself, what can I do to challenge myself? What is that next step I want to take out of my comfort zone that is not way out of my comfort zone? I've mentioned this a couple of times. Whenever you tackle a new challenge, make it challenging, but not completely overwhelming. Choose a skill that you want to practice. Choose either a poker concept that you want to work on, choose a new poker format, or a completely different skill, something like meditation, social skills, a new hobby you want to pick up, whatever it may be. Deliberate practice is always a great way to practice grit, because everything that you've never done before is probably going to be pretty hard in the beginning, and most of it will not immediately yield amazing results. So there's a lot of resistance in the beginning. And while it might be not so super obvious in poker, you might realize this in other areas or in other things other hobbies or other skills that you started. This pride in the process is very, very obvious. For example, if you're learning a new sport. In the beginning, let's say you've never played basketball before in your life and you're playing a match against a friend who's been playing all his life. You absolutely do not expect to win. You're proud of yourself just for stepping on the court and playing and allowing yourself to get embarrassed and humiliated. So just doing it, just starting out is already a reason to be proud of yourself. And maybe you've learned a couple of moves during that game, or maybe just you scored one basket, whatever it may be. And after that, you're practicing your skills and you're getting better and better. You absolutely do not expect to beat that friend anytime soon, but you're proud of yourself anyway. You're enjoying it anyway, because you're focusing on the process, because you're focusing on improving your skill and just enjoying the thing. And this is, of course, a lot more difficult in poker because it's directly connected to your financial situation. And losing in poker as a beginner hurts you more than losing a friendly basketball game. But I think it really illustrates that concept of focusing on the process and being proud of the process really, really well. So yeah, whatever skill you choose, whatever hobby you choose, that's a really great way to practice grit. Then another thing you can do is a small little diary exercise. By writing at the end of the day, taking 5 minutes and write down 1 or 2 or 3 negative emotions that you experienced throughout the day, that you overcame and then acted in contradiction to what the emotion was telling you. And you will realize you will have this every single day, at least one opportunity to remind yourself of. Can be tiny, tiny things. Let's just say, I don't know, you were tired in the morning and you got out of bed anyway. Or you felt like making a stupid river check race all in and you didn't. So it can be really, really tiny things that you managed throughout the day. The importance is that you become aware of them and that you realize that you're practicing grit every single day, even if you were not aware of it before. And lastly, whatever your plan is, whatever you're doing, seek support and feedback. That makes tasks that seem impossible all of a sudden doable. With the right help, with the right support, a step that may have been way, way out of your comfort zone before becomes just slightly out of your comfort zone. And all of a sudden you feel able to tackle a much bigger challenge, make a much bigger leap in skill or resilience or grit than you initially thought possible. And lastly, I want to say a few words about balance. People often use balance as an excuse for unhealthy behavior. So whenever they don't do the things they know they should be doing, or not always, but often they use balance as an excuse. For example, getting drunk on the weekend on every weekend. So you have a stressful job or you're playing a lot of poker, and on a weekend you say, now I need to balance this out. I need to let loose. I need to let go of the stress. I need to distract myself. So I'm going to get blackout drunk. And in my opinion, balance means, of course, you don't want to become this completely perfect, unrealistic robot version of a human that always does the 100% disciplined thing all the time. But in my opinion, this word balance is being misused a lot and being used as an excuse. Those numbers are completely made up, but in my opinion, kind of 90% of the time being disciplined and 10% of letting loose, 10% of the time letting loose, partying, getting a drink, eating a burger. That's what balance is by my definition. And balance basically should mean that you're healthy, that you're happy, that you're healthy, and you're productive. And you probably, if you're honest with yourself, what you're calling balance right now is not really healthy, is not really making you happy, is not really making you more productive. So in order to achieve balance, you probably need to do more of the disciplined stuff, more of the grit stuff, and less of the unhealthy stuff. But it doesn't mean that you need to get rid of all vices, that you should never party again, that you should never have a drink or a burger again. But if you're 100% honest with yourself, you're probably gonna accept that you are not as balanced as you're pretending to be. And lastly, I really hate this concept of the best in the world. I think way too many people think that this is a realistic or sensible or good goal to have, to become the best in the world. And I think being the best in the world in pretty much anything, especially in sports, poker, and so on, is massively, massively overrated and overglorified. Because if you look at the people who are being glorified and who are considered the best in the world, I'd say none of them look like happy, healthy people. If you look at whether it's Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Michael Jordan or LeBron James, they are incredibly good at one thing, but they don't seem like really happy, healthy people to me. They feel like they seem, at least to me personally, they seem like they are obsessed with this one thing. And once they're not considered the best anymore, or once somebody criticizes them, or once they feel attacked, it takes a massive hit on their ego and their happiness and so on. I think what is a much better goal is to be very good. Try to become really, really good at poker, but don't let it ruin the rest of your life. Don't let it ruin your balance. Don't make it the only thing that matters to you. And I think this is much more realistic, much more healthy, much more sustainable. And once you realize and once you make the effort to take care of the other areas of life, like your health, your social relationships, and so on, you will realize you're not missing anything, absolutely nothing, by not being the best in the world. So much for grit. If this is something you want to work on, if you feel like this is exactly what I need, this is what I needed to hear, but most importantly, this is what I need to put in practice, maybe my one-on-one coaching is for you. If you're interested, go ahead and reach out to me either on Discord or through my website, and we'll talk about how I can help you.